of 3 of Gill and Mike's 4 daughters, all of whom are here tonight. Although Mike is not here this evening, he does send Gill all his love, and to the rest of you he says, Kanji. I think I pronounced it correctly. So, a book without a reader, it's just paper and ink, and it is so lovely to see so many people here ready to breathe life into Gill's memories and stories that she's woven so beautifully into The Lion Behind the Anthill. I'd like to read this short note from David Reiter at Interactive Publishers. Greetings from Brisbane, Menjin. I'm sorry I couldn't attend the launch of The Lion Behind the Anthill, but it was my pleasure to meet Gill in person a few weeks ago in Sydney at Creative Australia's Visiting International Publishers Forum. Gill was great to work with over the months we invested in making this book the very best it could be, for you, its readers. Interactive Publications is always open to stories of adventure, survival, and transcendence over adversity, and Gill's book certainly hits the mark in all 3 of these criteria. You'll get insights into her and Mike's life in several countries, especially the African ones, and how that led to their settlement in Australia, where Gill now calls home. I hope you enjoy reading this book and spreading the word about it to your contacts, as much as we at Interactive Publications enjoyed bringing it to life. Thanks heaps to Sunil and Gleebooks for hosting yet another successful launch for us. Now, as much as I love the sound of my own voice, I know when it's time to pass the microphone on to someone who is far more capable and deeply knowledgeable. I'd like to welcome Rosamund Burton to the stage. She's an accomplished author and freelance journalist.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you. I feel very honoured to be launching The Lion Behind the Anthill. Here it is. In 2013, I ran a 12-week course based on The Artist's Way, Julia Cameron's book on unlocking creativity, which Gill, having just retired, signed up for. And the same week, she enrolled in a travel writing course with talented writer Claire Scobie, who was here, but I know has to go to something else, and she might have snuck away. She's author of the wonderful travel memoir, Last Seen in Lhasa. Just talking to her, she said it's 20 years since that book has been published. She's actually got an invitation to the Dalai Lama's 90th birthday from the New South Wales government, which is really testament to what a special book she wrote about a Tibetan nun and her encounter with her. So yes, Gill was in incredibly good hands with Claire. Having longed to write for years, she was finally putting pen to paper. And seeing her talent, Claire urged Gill to keep writing. Now, we finished our 12-week Artist's Way course, and several of us continued to meet. And Gill, Alison, who's here, Kate, who's can't actually be here this evening because she's doing an artist retreat in Queensland, but she is actually remote on a waving on a iPhone, and we've met monthly for 12 years. We were here for the launch of Gill's first book, The Hong Kong Letters, and it's wonderful to be back here at Gleebooks 6 years later for the publication of The Lion Behind the Anthill. So, Gill's writing is captivating. She really is a phenomenal storyteller. And she also, of course, has a passion for travel and adventure, and she's intrepid, which is why in the 1970s, having spent 2 years in Hong Kong, aged 23, she took a job working in Zambia. And she describes, just at the beginning of the book, getting to Africa, being out of place, and she says, "So white, I made the locals blink." But it's there that she meets the good-looking, brilliant and utterly unconventional biologist Mike Shaddick. And every chapter of this book is filled with vivid details as this inseparable pair move across Africa. Zambia, Zambezi, South Africa, Sudan and Egypt. And Gill says, eventually I would be grateful for what Africa taught me. Its complexities provoked me to dig deeper into what went before to understand the now. And I love how Gill delves into the history to comprehend the status quo of a situation. And this is one of the, well, there's so many special things about this book, but it's certainly one of them. Mike and Gill navigated their way through adventures, triumphs and disasters. And I just wanted to sort of give you a slight flavour of the book and highlight one or two of these. In Sudan, they were living without water or electricity while working on a cotton project. And Gill had a miscarriage, followed by 3 D&Cs to combat bleeding and pain. And she was saved by an Irish nurse from the hands of the Scottish doctor in Khartoum, who she later discovered had been forbidden to practice in Britain. And she escapes this man's clutches moments before an operation that would have likely killed her. So we're very pleased you're here today, Gill. Well, under the care of a highly regarded gynecologist in England, she's told that she has little chance of getting pregnant again. Well, Mike declares that he can't live without her, whether she can have children or not. But, much to Gill and Mike's joy, not only is Kim born, but then Dale, Emily and Alice. But what threatens to tear apart this unbreakable duo with their young family is Mike's diagnosis of multiple sclerosis soon after they moved to Sydney in 1987. And this pair, who've always been a team, have very different ideas on how to navigate through this chronic illness. But travel is still in their veins. And in 2009, Gill plans for the two of them, Mike on the Zimmer frame, to walk slowly around the world. So they start out on a rugged coastal path on New Zealand's Waiheke Island. Sadly, this doesn't have the Salt Path's fairy tale ending, because within hours, Mike has fallen and needs stitches in his head. Now, there is a bottle of wine involved as well, so anyway, you have to read Gill's story. But it's through renting out rooms in their Sydney house to overseas guests that they find themselves not only surrounded by their family, but also people from all corners of the world. I think they've somehow given a whole new meaning to armchair travelling, not the one we're used to. The Lion Behind the Anthill, Gill holds the reader mesmerised by her stories with her vivid descriptions and incredible honesty. And it really is a gripping, delightful, witty, heartbreaking book. And it's a story of love. So, savour this wonderful read. And tell all your friends. And buy lots of copies because it's fabulous. Thank you.
Two microphones. It's obvious, yeah. Two, and lots of bits of paper. I might try and get rid of some of those. Okay. Ros, thank you very much for the absolutely wonderful introduction. And one of the reasons that I'm here today is because Ros nudged me along. And I say nudged, that sounds quite soft, doesn't it? And Ros looks quite soft and sweet, doesn't she? Well, actually, she's got a nudge like steel. And she has pushed and pushed. So thank you so much, Ros. Okay, it's just wonderful to see you here today. So many familiar faces and unfamiliar faces. So thank you very much, everybody, for coming. I've had many careers and many hats, but this one that I wear today, an author of the third age, is my favourite, and it's got a feather in it. I'm going to start towards the end of The Lion Behind the Anthill in 2010, where, as Ros mentioned, I started to rent out rooms, initially to visiting academics because Airbnb hadn't started. And that was my first new hat of the third age, and it was a mop hat with frills on it, and I didn't want it. It wasn't one I donned by choice. I did not wish to be a housekeeper. I found that resistance can be a strange catalyst. What I dreaded most turned into the most extraordinary job I'd ever had. It lasted longer than any other job I'd ever had. I did it before Airbnb started. I only wish I'd had the sense to do what Airbnb did and start an app. Can I just ask all my guests and ex-guests that are here today to put up their hands? Oh. So you can see that combining my careers of the third age, I got an income, I got time to write, and I got a captive audience. Now back to my beginnings. I left England aged 21 to go and work overseas, first in Hong Kong. I left a very warm, loving family who expected to see me back, but that never quite happened. But I wrote every few days, twice, 3 times a week, to my parents for the next 25 years until there was no longer anybody to open the letters. And I would not have been able to write 2 memoirs if it had not been that they kept all my letters. My father obviously saw this as the beginning of my writing career because he insisted on correcting my spelling, punctuation and grammar until eventually we had a showdown and I said I wouldn't write anymore. When I first met Mike in Zambia, it was a whirlwind love affair. Now, because I wrote so regularly, my parents had noticed this name Mike popping up and already put 2 and 2 together. But Mike's parents had no such advance notice because Mike never wrote letters. The occasional phone call to tell them that he was still alive, but that was about it. However, when such a momentous event as getting engaged came along, he put pen to paper. And he wrote a rather mundane letters to his parents, and then at the bottom he put, P.S. got engaged today. 2 weeks later, a letter came back from Mike's father, George, another prosaic letter, and at the bottom he put, P.S. it matters not to us, but out of interest, is she black or white? Mike was white. We were born in the same country, but that was about the only connection. He could spell for a start. He was a very well-educated grammar school boy, where I was a very poorly educated private schoolgirl. His nickname at school was Prof, because he knew more than all the teachers. He was confident and worldly and streetwise. He joined sit-ins at university and went on protest marches. He was arrested several times, once for running over a policeman's foot. He read Private Eye, so called the Queen Brenda and Prince Charles Brian, which thoroughly confused me until I realized I had to learn a whole lexicon of Private Eye names. My father regarded Private Eye as a subversive rag, although I doubt he'd ever read it. Mike had long hair. He went to music festivals with beads round his neck and had spent some time in a cave in Devon, burning incense and contemplating his navel. He had no respect for authority, and he was not my type. I was Miss Goody Two-Shoes, 'Shoes and came from a very conservative upbringing. I wasn't starstruck in the way that everybody loves a bad boy. He was just the most unusual, funny, witty bloke I'd ever met. And he was irresistible. Another opposite that we had was that he loved Zambia and loved Africa. I had already decided to leave Zambia, and I couldn't wait to shake the red dust off my boots. Once we were married, wild horses were not going to drag me back to that continent. But as I've said, resistance is a strange catalyst, and I found myself back there time and time again. I have no regrets. I owe Africa a great debt. We returned home to my parents' place in Oxford and got married, and then set off on a series of under-choreographed adventures. Mike's High Noon was establishing a fishing business on Lake Kariba. There was just one minor detail. There was a war going on in Rhodesia at the time, and we arrived just as it was hotting up. What an incredible 2 years it was. But I will always be grateful for the intensity of the premonition that told me it was time I insisted we go. Our nadir was a rabbit farm in the Galloway Peninsula in Scotland. You might not know where the Galloway Peninsula is. That's because its nickname is the Forgotten Corner of Scotland. It's the first place in the world to establish a dark sky park. A dark sky park is where you go to watch the stars because there's so little light pollution, because nobody lives there. We spent one winter there, and it was the worst ever recorded in Galloway. Though we'd been mortar bombed in Rhodesia, Kim, Dale and I nearly died in a Scottish blizzard. We never did that in an African war. Our vet said to us one day, looking at the rabbits, "Rabbits are just like sheep. When they decide to die, they just turn up their toes and do it, and there's nothing you can do." And he was so correct. We never had a chance to make it a success, but perhaps I'm really glad. Because if it had been successful, we might still be on that cold, remote peninsula in Scotland, and I'm damn sure none of my daughters would have been around to stay. But as it is, they're all close to me, and they are endlessly supportive and bloody good fun. We left Scotland, not just broke, but in debt. And I'm sure you don't have to guess where we went back to. On the plane back to Africa, I clutched Emily, a 10-day-old baby, because although the rabbits didn't breed, we did. I think memoir is seeing one's minuscule life in the maelstrom of existence. Mike and I had no business ever being in many of the places that we were in, working on projects of questionable value. I see my past as a sponge that has dried up over time, and the writing process has allowed me to water it with knowledge and hindsight and awareness, and for it to swell the recollections. So while it might have been challenging to write this book, it has been cathartic, and it's been fascinating. I have to acknowledge it has also been very hard for my girls, and it is wonderful that they have supported me throughout. Mike was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis shortly after we arrived in Australia. His intrepid past did not give him any solace or consolation. He simply erased it and said that he no longer wished to talk about it. It was too painful to remember. My girls had few memories, so I was the holder of the past. I was the holder of all these adventures that we had, and I had to write them down. But that isn't how Mike came to own his past again. He wasn't interested in me writing them down. But what happened was that when I opened my house to guests, they came from every corner of the world and they told their stories. And as they told their stories and I joined in, and eventually something miraculous happened because Mike joined in. And Mike was again able to own his past. To quote from my book, "No one had a story where life was perfect. Often great sorrow had come unbidden from the wings. Heartache and hardship didn't play fair." I hope The Lion Behind the Anthill will make you laugh, and it might make you cry. My tears are embedded in the ink. And I hope it will help you to see value, not just in the big successes in life, but in those little things where we climbed out of ditches, where we were able to push aside depression, where we looked for plan B and found it. And maybe you will recognize that strange paradox that sometimes delivers the very best results from things that we really don't want to do. As I say, resistance can be a strange catalyst. I'm now going to ask Dale to read a passage from my book. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Jill's second daughter and Mike's favourite daughter. I'm going to read a passage which takes place at El Minya in Upper Egypt on the Nile. And the setting for this piece is that Dad was working and Jill had taken it upon herself to go and explore, as you would. So this is her exploring in El Minya. At the dockside, boats were loaded by hand, and I could hear a cussing, a common language as men and youths coiled heavy coir ropes while small boys darted between them, sweeping rubbish into the Nile. I moved back to sit on a low wall under the shade of rustling palms to watch the river traffic. Goats picked over the rubbish, looked up, and for a few moments they stared at me, their slit eyes motionless and disconnected from their unfaltering jaws, rhythmically munching. The hum of insects and the chant of human voices, mixing with the clatter and jangle of the port, pulsed uphill and over my head. I watched great barges packed with grain make lazy journeys downstream with the current. Dhows with lateen sails that picked up the wind midstream seemed painted on the surface of the Nile, time-travelling the current. Barks laden with roughly hewn limestone crabbed across the river from a quarry I could just see on the far side. The unloaded blocks were roped to donkeys waiting on the quayside. The poor beasts shuddered and slipped under the strain of the fearful pull up the steep sandy slope to the road, more often on their knees than on their feet, urged on with fearsome belts of the whip. I was in my element, until one day, when I arrived back to the mess, hot and happy, with a bag of bread and tomatoes, Muhammad delivered a message from Mr. Z, addressed to no one in particular. It read, "Tell Mrs. Shaddick she is not permitted to walk alone in the town." It was never quite clear who was supposed to tell Mrs. Shaddick what she could and could not do. Sorry, lost my place. Muhammad tried to console me with orange juice, but by the time Mike returned, I had worked myself into a fury. I raged, threatened to leave, to run naked through the streets. I'm not going to live my life as a bloody appendix. Do you mean appendage? Mike suggested. I wavered and then said coolly, "No, I mean appendix, a useless part." Mike poured 2 glasses of syrupy date brandy from the brown bottle that we kept locked in our suitcase so it could be less easily diluted with dirty water. "You have every right to be angry. with me and with the company. Of course, he disarmed me. "I'm not angry with you," I said. "Then come have a drink and we will make a plan." He threw his long arm over my shoulders. "There is only one solution," he said. "Join us on the project."
I ended up with 2 microphones. Thank you so much. And thank you, Dale. Alice and Kim are here tonight, but I didn't want to share too much of the spotlight, so they're doing all the work while I get all the credit. When you came in, you were given a lucky door prize by the beautiful Kobe, and along with Kobe, most of Jill's and Mike's grandchildren are here. We have Finn here, we have Rocket and Isla, and Fox May has jettisoned, but it's just really beautiful to have so much family here. Now, to draw the lucky door prize, the beautiful Stephanie is going to draw it for us. She is an Airbnb host, but she has become a firm and valued friend. So, where's the box, Kobe? Okay, now the first trick is to find... Oh, no, here it is. Oh. If you get your own... Drum roll, drum. What colour is it? It's A17. A17. So close. Did Fox get that one? No one got A17? No. Debbie, you draw the next one. Make it quick. Pressure, under pressure, under pressure. A06. Number 6. I feel like I'm going to start drawing out bingo any minute now. Oh, yay! There you go, that's a copy of Jill's first book, The Hong Kong Letters. Okay, we're nearly there. First of all, I'd like to just say a massive thank you to Roz. It's been so wonderful listening to Mum talk about every time she comes back from her meetings and the conversations that you guys have. It's just been really beautiful, and the support you've given Mum in her writing has been invaluable, and so we thank you. And now, to the woman of... Oh. It's fine. I just want to say, and I had to write this down because I might get a bit teary, but to the woman of the hour, Gill, you are a brilliant writer. I hope it's genetic. So watching you write has been such an extraordinary thing, because your dedication and your discipline and your joy and the amount of heart you pour into your writing, as your daughter and as a human, and all your girls agree, it is just such a pleasure and a joy and totally inspiring. Watching you on this writer's journey, talking about your research, the billions of rabbit holes you go down, the discoveries you've made because of all the beautiful, curious questions you ask, it has just been extraordinary. And writing a memoir about our parents was a real gift to us as children, because you really brought you and Dad to life in a way that a lot of people don't get the chance to see. You made yourselves complex and deeply human individuals. But my favourite thing about your writing is that I now know that the courageous, compassionate, fiercely intelligent and hilarious woman has been there the whole entire time. We've got 2 more things. You guys got a bookmark, and on that there is a QR code. That QR code will take you to Amazon reviews, because we really think that Gill deserves so much from this book, and your reviews will really help get that word around. It will see her get the recognition she deserves, and also that us girls can get the inheritance we deserve. Now, one of the most important messages of the evening is that after this we will be headed to the Glebe Hotel for a drink or 2 and celebrate and create new stories that may or may not be in Jill's next book.